anything else.
Well, before you plow forward? No, I think you plow forward.
Let's go. Okay.
Plow away.
Plow away. All right, so deciding how many slots they want a copy to take on the RDU basically has more to do with leaving slots in the InfiniVault. This is really where we'll get our, like I said, the Model 100 customers have this real need to make sure that the data is always readily available, and they'll keep those cartridges in the RDUs indefinitely. We actually find a lot of customers who want to keep a copy inside the system for quick access. So it's kind of interesting because once the file hits the file area, it's basically already in the system.
Right.
But there is an instance where that file area does clear out. And so in large ingestion environments where they need the full file area and they've got, large files, lots of them, they do want that file area cleaned out. So they will choose a good number of slots to keep a year's worth of data or 3 years worth of data online so that it's quickly accessible by them. Somewhat defeats the whole archive purpose, but or principle, but that's the way that they need to run their business. Often too, customers will want copy offsite. And so basically once a week, once a month, you'll find that they'll take copy 2 generally offsite and replace it with a new cartridge. And that will always have some offsite capability. Well, I'll show you all this when we go into the InfiniVault. Creating vaults is also done through the management console, this GUI web-based interface. Customers tell us it's really easy to use. They really like it, so hopefully you'll find that too. One decision that they have to make when they're creating a vault is whether it's going to be worm or read-write vault. Worm vaults are really for customers who have compliance needs for their data. They have to keep that data immutable for a certain period of time, meaning that they, nobody can update it, nobody can delete it. And then every time somebody tries to access that data, they've got some written audit trail of it. Our system will do that for them. A read-write vault basically allows the user to kind of hand over that control to the application. The application can modify, delete, rename, whatever it wants to do to that data, and it can control the retention policy on that data. In that case, then the InfiniVault doesn't become the protector of that compliance law or regulation that they've got to follow. The application does. More often, we see customers want kind of a little bit of both, and we can handle that. And I'll talk more about that going forward. But anyway, customers with read-write vaults, it's often you'll find when you go into an install, they won't quite know what they want to do yet, how they want to configure that. The configuration is not a service that we necessarily recommend you provide, but you're certainly willing or able to do that if you want an upsell opportunity. We don't normally do it. We'll advise, but ultimately it's up to them how they want to create their vaults and their retention policies and so on and so forth. A lot of our customers will just want a read-write vault so that they can play around, kind of as a test vault.
That is the right address, right?
When we're talking about copies, we should also talk about remote replication feature.
Our server.
In our 2.0 release, we've got the ability to send a copy to a remote InfiniVault. Say you've got kind of like the central office, remote office kind of scenario going on. You can send a copy of that data to the remote office from the home office or vice versa. One of the benefits of that is it really kind of promotes data sharing. If you've got the same application needing that data, you can data share. Another good application for it is data recovery. So disaster recovery, DR type capabilities. Each then site would manage its own removable copies. So it's a pretty sophisticated way to share data, enable disaster recovery, but each local machine gets to then kind of set its own rules for that data and where that data goes to RDX cartridge.
Is that a module they purchase, or is that part of the base pack?
It's part of the package. I know we should charge extra for it, but we don't. When you're setting up replication, again, the user's guide has a really good discussion about this, but we want to make sure that you set up the target before you enable the source, and you'll go into the Create Vault wizard, same as when you created the vault itself, to set up all of those specifics. Once you've created vaults, you can't actually access the vaults themselves. You can't write data at the vault level. You have to create folders under the vault level. So creating vault folders, there's a little wizard to do that as well. Here's where you'll set retention times. Again, for the whatever compliance policies that the customer has in place. Infinite retention, or retain for 30 days. This pull-down menu will have months, years.
That's retention on the removable media before
On
it can be
the
overwritten?
retention for the files. They won't be removed. They won't expire, and they won't be removed until that retention period is met.
Okay, so you have both, the disk cache as well as the removable cartridges.
Correct.
For creating a vault. The retention period is applicable to the file no matter where it physically lives, or
All the files under that folder, yes, correct.
all the files that are folder? Okay. So if I set it for 30 days, on day 31, it'll autonomously remove the file?
Yes.
Or release it, not release.
It'll release it. It actually
Release is
doesn't
better word,
delete
maybe.
the file.
Oh, so that is released from the
Yes,
disk?
release, not remove.
It's
Okay,
not
no, I
removed. It's not
understand.
physically removed,
better,
although
Okay. So
we've
remove
got
Yeah.
we've got some features coming up where it will actually be removed. We've got right now, we don't quite have data shredding enabled
Sure.
yet. That's digital shredding. What do we call it? It's a delete delete disposition.
Okay, so retention period is applicable to the disk cache before it's released.
Yes.
The file still lives on the removable media if
Yes,
it's
it
been
does.
configured to migrate to the removable media.
Correct.
And it's still available back off the removable media through the network share.
Correct.
That we're assigning to this. Okay.
Correct.
And that rule is per folder based on
Yes.
time only?
It is based on time only. And again, that's where, like HIPAA has certain time
Sure.
constraints, SEC. Every one of the compliance standards has some time boundary associated with it.
So if the disk cache fills up, it's full until that day that it releases.
I'll show
You
you.
won't have a watermark.
I'll show you. It's coming. And actually, it does something funky.
Must be good.
Yeah, don't say it.
No, it's funky good. It's actually, it's really good. Again, for the customers who want that large landing zone, they want as much of that available as possible.
Sure.
Yep.
So I'll tell you.
Okay.
It basically stubs it to just a reparse point. So it removes the file from the file area. The file exists then only on the removable media itself. If that file comes back from cartridge, the reparse point will rebuild that file and then serve it up to the application of the user, whoever requested it.
Very slight delay, I would think. Because
Yes.
there's no tape to load on.
Yeah, no, slight delay. Unless the cartridge happens to be
Unless
removed
it's
from the
over there,
system,
receive message.
and it's at Iron Mountain, then you get an alert saying, go bring back this cartridge
Right.
from wherever. Managing cartridges, the user can label the cartridges. Basically, oops, I'm sorry. This tab, the cartridges tab, will show information about all of the cartridges. I took this slide off of a test machine, obviously, because we were playing around with the different locations and labels and stuff. So you can see the location broom closet and all kinds of goofy names here. But know that this stuff is thoroughly tested. That's where we do the goofy stuff, is in system test. Okay. This data can be accessible by CIFS. Basically, just view the shares via Windows Explorer, or you can map the vault to a drive letter, and then that folder, the vault folder, is accessible to you using the CIFS protocol. It's also, you can mount the vaults via an NFS mount point. And so it's available to you through the NFS protocol as well. Excuse me. Okay, so this says review because there's actually a sales presentation that goes through the InfiniVault operation. Some of the sales guys, really get that. They really glom onto it. Other sales guys just go, yeah, whatever. That's for the SE to understand. But anyway, so the files themselves come into the online area first. That's where they land, and then they get processed. I said that we had some SQL Server restrictions on how many files could get ingested, and specifically this is why. So we've got 4 different databases inside, all with their own groups and passwords and stuff, because I already told you about some customers pushing SQL Server updates. The file information basically is stored in the file metadata database. It also will hash it for a digital fingerprint. It'll do single instancing. It'll also content index certain file types so that through the file browser in the web-based GUI management console, you can search on those files as well. So, like .doc, .pdf, those kinds of files will be indexed for searchability. The data will be compressed and encrypted. Again, these are options through the Vault Wizard. Most of our customers will choose compression and encryption. The data will also then be containerized as it's written to cartridge. So basically, what that means is that we try to write 512 megabyte containers to the cartridges. I think most disk users will only get about 65 to 75% of the disk space utilization. By virtue of the fact that we containerize all of the files to the RDX cartridge, we actually get somewhere in the 95th percentile in terms of usage of that cartridge. So we do try to containerize that onto the cartridge. There are certain rules that apply. We'll only try to build that cartridge to a certain point. If 15 minutes elapse and we haven't filled that container, we'll go ahead and push that data to the cartridge itself. So you can kind of see that these are asynchronous processes. The files being pushed to the online area will happen immediately, and then the processing of the data, the single instancing, the hash code, the content index, all of that stuff will happen independently of data being pushed to the online file area. So customers will stand there and say, I want to see that data written to cartridge. Well, it's an asynchronous process, and it happens kind of in the background. We will err on the side of trying to get as much into that file area as possible before that data gets pushed out. There are some other operations that will also take precedence over the pushing of data to cartridge. Those are things like doing system backups, although we don't recommend that you schedule that for the middle of the day when data is being processed. There are some instances where if an application is doing a delete, that will go ahead of the data being pushed out to a cartridge. But know that data is not going anywhere. It's on the file area, and it'll get out to the individual cartridges and the copies eventually. Data is not fully protected until it's written to all of its copies. So that's another thing that might kind of be delayed in that process. If a user's got 4 different copies that data needs to be written to, there are some cases when the media won't even be in the slot, and that data then is not fully protected until it's written to all its copies. So you'll get an alert saying, please put the media in the slot because your data's not protected. Okay. I hate this cold. This has been horrible.
And you brought it up here to Minnesota to share with us?
I think it's just the tail end of it, I hope.
When you're going down to Atlanta, is that you'll take it with you?
Yeah, well, I probably got it on the plane on the way to Raleigh a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So, oh, look at this guy. I don't even know your name. You better tell me your name before you move away.
Don.
Hi, Don. I'm Becky.
You need to catch up on the lunch request.
Oh, you want to eat.
You get no lunch, you live.
Oh, I'm no lunch for me?
And I didn't catch your name either. Did I?
No, I didn't get it.
We call
That's
it
Greg. Not good.
Don, Greg,
Where's the
Todd,
lunch? Very good.
Or
Angel.
we see Lori maybe. Or
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you made it halfway. That's pretty good.
Just Emilio's.
All right.
We got about halfway, right?
Quick, what's my name?
Becky.
Oh, see?
I only have to remember one though.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the easy part. All right. This is where I talk about the reparse point, the stubbing, such that if the online area has filled up, the data has been protected. That's kind of one of the rules. Nothing will stub, none of the data will stub unless all of the copies have been written out and a system backup has occurred. So there are some cases where a system backup hasn't occurred and a user will have to, we do have the ability to force a stub on certain files through the management console. So we have had users say, why didn't the stub job work? It's been 24 hours, I don't understand it. Well, because the data either wasn't protected or a recent system backup hadn't been done. Remember all those databases, that's basically what's being saved in a system backup. So if those databases aren't in sync, then that stubbing won't happen. But assuming all of that has happened, it will boil it down to reparse point only, so effectively the file is removed from the online file area. It is resident on the RDX cartridges. The application receives an InfiniVault request, and that file does not happen to be in the RDU, that file is on a cartridge somewhere kind of floating out. It will send a request through the alerts system. There's a place in the InfiniVault where you manage all of the email accounts who get those alerts. Those alerts are severity-based, so you can have different users get different types of warnings and alerts, critical alerts, operational alerts, or just message alerts. You can have different users get different layers of those messages. Protected copies, again, having those copies all written out to the cartridges. In the file browser, right here under the Files tab and the File browser, you'll see a little checkbox saying that those files have been protected. So again, cartridges can fill up, they can be replaced, and the InfiniVault manages where those cartridges are. So that's really that, part of the secret sauce is that not only does the InfiniVault manage the migration of data to cartridge, but it also keeps track of where that data is. Here's a screenshot showing force of a stub. Basically, you can use the search capability in the file browser. See down here? You guys can see my little mouse go. You can search for different files. Then you would basically select those files by hitting a checkbox. I've taken this a step farther. Go to the Selected Files tab, because now that they're selected, then you can perform different tasks on them. We also have the capability to do legal hold. Say, somebody enters into some litigation and they need to make sure that those files don't expire during the course of that litigation. Those need to be accessible for the trial. You can go into the file browser and select files for legal hold.
So that's just to lock it on cache.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So those files will not expire for any reason until that.
Will not release.
They will not stub. They will not release. They will not anything. They're not going anywhere until that legal hold is lifted. You have to manually go in and lift the legal hold as well. There's also, like I said, remember it keeps an audit trail of all of the file operations. So there's also an audit trail of the fact that the legal hold was placed and the legal hold was lifted. Again, we really want to make sure that this system will follow all of the compliance regulations that are out there, SEC probably being the most stringent of them. Most customers are going to have some kind of an archival application to manage their data, but if they don't, we do have, with the InfiniVault, comes Bridgehead's FDMI software. It's pretty much a lightweight application in that it's not a lot better than Robocopy, except for the fact that it will do stubbing, so it will allow for more of a tiered archival type system. Its stubbing and our stubbing play nicely together. Other applications do stubbing as well. Other applications do containerization. Those also play well together. They're completely independent of one another, those processes. But anyway, there's a little CD there, that's why I'm pointing. So most customers will have some kind of an application, a data mover type application, hierarchical storage management, content management type application, email archive application. But for those customers that don't, you can also manually retrieve files from cartridge using the file browser as well. And again, through that search capability, because it content indexes certain files, you can actually go in and put certain strings that might be contained in your file in the search criteria and have those files be located. The data archiving applications, I mentioned FDMI, but there's a ton other that have been fully tested with the InfiniVault system. We've got a solutions engineering group that is kind of their responsibility to do that. They will write very concise and explicit app notes for those applications. Any configuration considerations when you're setting up the vaults or when you're setting up the application will be very well identified in that app note. So those app notes are all available, as is the list, the Excel spreadsheet with the list of all the applications that have been tested with the InfiniVault is on the support portal. So here's a screenshot of the support portal. It's just in our ISV downloads. I'm sorry, it's in the knowledge base area of the support portal. There are some applications where the user really wants the data to be kept warm. They want that data immutability. But the application itself does some kind of annotation or has an index that it updates continuously. We have the capability to add files and folders to an exclude list, meaning that those annotations or those indexes that are updated can be set to read-write, while all of the rest of the data that that application stores are read-only, are worm protected. So that is something that we've got the capability to do. Technically, it is a call to ProStore Tech Support, but it's something that I would like to be able to share that responsibility with our partners as well. So if you guys are starting to sell a certain application where that's pretty much the norm, then we'll go ahead and we'll send you all the information that you need to go ahead and do that on site.
So I missed the slide about worm. There's nothing physically different about worm media? There's no worm media in your InfiniVault product. It's just how we set up the policies for the vault?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Actually, that's not correct. The cartridges inside the InfiniVault are worm unless otherwise they're overridden. The data can't come out any way other than through the InfiniVault.
Right.
Okay, you can't take this cartridge
So
and put it in a standalone.
ProStore, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't take this cartridge out of an InfiniVault, put it into a standalone RDX dock,
Right.
and be able to read the data, because it won't make any sense. So basically within the InfiniVault itself, the InfiniVault, unless overridden by the creation of a read-write vault, is all worm, from cartridge to
Worm the environment that it's in, not by, it's not manufactured as a worm device.
no, correct.
Right.
You're right. You're right. It's not manufactured as physically as a worm device.
So to follow that up then, that cartridge, you cannot put it in any InfiniVault.
No, you can't take it
The same one it
from
was written on.
InfiniVault A and put it in InfiniVault B.
That's
No
the
way to
way
replace it.
Currently, no.
Everyone's
It's on
got
our
ideas.
roadmap to be able to do that. But again, they've got that remote replication
Yep.
capability.
Yep, so you can do it there.
So yeah, you're effectively,
Sure.
you're sending a copy over to that InfiniVault. It's readable by that InfiniVault. You can store it onto
I guess
cartridge
if
by
you
that
want to do that, we
InfiniVault.
just buy the RDU without the InfiniVault application and
We
just
sell that.
ROA to it, huh?
Yeah, we do sell that too.
Yeah.
We're OEMing that through a couple of our partners
And they're
right now.
random access devices then, right?
Yes. Okay. Other questions? Those are good questions. Managing copies, I wanted to have a couple of examples where we've got typical Model 3 customers. So I kind of built this in. Again, we see a lot of that desire to leave one copy online permanently. Customers are really kind of nervous about that online file area. They want to make sure that they've got a lot of space to to play with there, you know, and again, the online file area for a Model 3 is, there's a test, it was the very first slide, does anybody remember?
Not too big.
Because I don't, yeah, it's not too big. The online capacity is 3 terabytes.
Compressed.
Fast forward. So they want to keep a copy on site permanently. They don't ever want to remove that unless that cartridge, of course, fills up, and then they'll replace it with another cartridge. But we do have customers that do want to take one copy offline, you know, weekly for disaster recovery. So basically, they've got two choices here. They can continue to pile up cartridges until such time as their retention period hits. So in this